Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So this will be the session on astrotourism and community development. As we all know that since now we're starting to realize the importance of the dark skies that we as most African countries possess, and the development of astronomical instruments in the continent, astrotourism is becoming quite an important sector for us to sort of tap into. So in this session, we were supposed to have three presenters give us insights into this area of astrophysics, but I only see Sam available. So Sam will kick us off with the first talk. And then if the other presenters are not yet around, we can probably kickstart a lively discussion. I see a lot of the people from the OAD. I see Dr. Awala there, who also has quite some interesting insights into the field of astrotourism and dark skies. So probably we can sort of have a lively discussion. So over to you, Sam.
Hi everyone, I'm Samyukta and I work with the IAU Office of Astronomy for Development as a remote fellow. And one of the areas that we focus on at the OAD is astrotourism. So astrotourism is one of our 3 flagship projects, and it falls under the theme of astronomy for sustainable socioeconomic development. So what we're trying to do is look at ways that we can both grow the global astrotourism ecosystem and also support astrotourism initiatives around the world, and try to leverage the strengths that different groups of people around the world have and make astrotourism accessible to everyone. So this is a light pollution map of the world. The darker areas are places that have lower levels of light pollution, and the brighter ones are ones that have higher levels. And if you look at Africa, you can see that most of it is dark, except for spots of light around urban centers. Most of the continent has very low levels of light pollution. And this is a strength for us because we have access to very, very dark night skies that a lot of the northern hemisphere, like the global north, doesn't have access to, and they're working to try to reverse this aggressive growth of light pollution, whereas we're in a position to already start using this resource that we have. Another one of Africa's strengths, because we don't have so much development and infrastructure in large parts, is that we have pretty well preserved natural heritage. So we have beautiful natural landscapes, wild spaces, wild areas with really diverse kinds of nature spread around the continent. And hand in hand with the natural heritage, we also have very rich and very diverse cultural heritage. This is in the form of people, the way they live, their rituals, their worldviews, and their beliefs, and also the things that different people on the continent produce, like artifacts and textiles and arts and crafts, and just the way they express themselves. And this cultural heritage isn't just limited to things and people, it also extends into our view of the night sky. So all the tribes across Africa have their own unique relationships with the night sky, where they use the stars both for very functional purposes, like navigation, timing harvests, keeping track of time, and also as a place to look for meaning and purpose and give themselves a sense of place in the world. Another big strength, which ties to our natural and cultural heritage, is that we have a pretty strong tourism industry throughout the continent. So the tourism market is projected to reach a $25 billion revenue by the end of this year, and it's expected to grow to about $34 billion by 2029. So it's a growing sector, huge market, and lots of opportunities to tap into what's an existing tourism base and introduce an activity like astrotourism that happens at night that doesn't really compete with the tourism that mostly goes on during the day. So I just want to touch on some astrotourism stuff that's happening around the continent, one of which is a very bold, very impressive initiative, South Africa's National Astrotourism Strategy. So this aims to develop astrotourism through creating routes and itineraries and integrating astrotourism into the general tourism experience of someone who visits South Africa. And this is a really good example of a top-down initiative where you work with higher bodies in regulation to try to promote astrotourism. Yeah, top-down, basically. If you want to know more about this, you can reach out to Audrey, who gave the presentation on the multi-wavelength strategies. Yeah, she have a lot more information. And like the flip side of this, which is looking at more bottom-up initiatives, I wanted to highlight Namibia. Namibia has very beautiful dark skies and a very dry climate, which makes for an incredible night sky. And the Namibia Nature Reserve has a dark sky reserve designation given by Dark Sky International. And sort of in tandem with this, a lot of the lodges and camps in the area have developed astrotourism activities, diverse kinds of things. So you have stargazing, you have things like starbeds, and also the integration of cultural astronomy within activities. And these are bottom up because they're being driven by businesses and private sector individuals. We just had a talk one session ago, or was it 2 sessions ago, about touching on astrotourism in Namibia, but also Cisco over here would be able to tell you more. That's something we're curious about. So at the OID, we're thinking about how to make astrotourism more accessible. And what we did was come up with this broad category of night sky tourism. So night sky tourism is basically a tourism activity that involves the night sky in some way. So it could either be spending time under the night sky or an activity that involves you contemplating the night sky. So this would include astrotourism, the traditional way we think about it, with stargazing, with telescopes, with someone explaining the science of it. But it also allows for a much broader range of activities, something like, dark sky tourism and celestial tourism, but also if you think of other ecotourism or cultural tourism activities, like if you want to harness the natural heritage of a place, you could arrange a moonlight hike, and that way you're taking advantage of the natural landscape and you're using nighttime as a resource. Or, for example, if you arrange a dinner under the stars and have local cultural food in like a starlit landscape, that way you're combining cultural heritage with the night sky. And we've created resources to sort of help this idea reach further. The first target group that we looked at was people living in rural areas. And like I said before, we really want to focus on the strengths of our particular target groups. So people in rural areas generally have access to very, very great dark skies. And they also have managed to preserve their culture very well. So they have really distinct elements like particular foods, particular ways of living. And so this resource is just like a little booklet that guides people through creating an experience, very simple, and trying to add these cultural touch points to the experience to make it like locally relevant and very immersive. The second target group of ours was people who are already in tourism that are looking to expand into astrotourism. And so they have a lot of experience with tourism, skills, infrastructure, logistics. They have all that down, they have an existing audience. So this resource is a little more focused on the astro part of astrotourism, but also trying to help them come up with an activity that fits in with what they already do. Like it's sort of, the theme is consistent. And then our third resource is to help communities around observatories or around telescopes. So telescopes are typically situated in very remote areas. often our communities surrounding them. And we created this with this idea in mind that we want the community to benefit from astrotourism, and we also want to create a symbiosis between an observatory or a telescope and community. So this doesn't focus explicitly on creating night sky activities because the observatory is already focused on the night sky. What this does is try to complement it by helping people create like accommodation or food or other activities that happen when the observatory isn't having their own activities. So it's like an itinerary that you try to create in tandem with the observatory. We also launched our website earlier this year, and this is a video that should play. Yeah, it's I mean, you can also just access the URL. It's a place where we are trying to collect all the information about the flagship, but also build a more global astrotourism community. So we have places where you can look at the resources, where you can learn about, you know, the projects that we funded and the things that we've taken away from all the experiences that people have had implementing astrotourism around the world. You can submit your own initiative to be featured, and you can look at all the astrotourism stuff that's happening around the world. Yeah, check out our website. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us, and thank you.
So yeah, thank you so much, Sam, for your very insightful contributions with the OAD to astrotourism and how your thoughts on how we can integrate local tourism, for instance, the beautiful landscapes that we as most African countries have, along with the cultural tourism sector, and then integrating astronomy content within that. So with that, I open the floor to any questions or comments.
You have talked about the dark night tourism. I would like to hear your suggestions on some other aspects, because you showed the dark areas around the globe. Yeah, we always want the dark sky, but the other elements of this that are disadvantageous in some areas that you don't speak about. For example, the rain. There are places there which are very dark, but it is always raining. So it doesn't help it being very dark, or it is too cloudy. So it would also be good to have this part highlighted. Otherwise, you come here, you are very excited, you want to do a lot of astrotourism in the night, in the programs, and then it is too cloudy. I think you can do anything. So I feel we have to also make people know about these aspects, because the people who actually go out know that it is useless if it is cloudy, it's raining, it's what, blah, 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 even if it is too dark.
And that's a really good point. I wish I could tell you how to control the weather. If anyone is, please feel free to them. For normal astrotourism, you know, if you have like a telescope and a group coming, and of course you don't know, sometimes it's cloudy. But usually people have a backup activity. You know, they'll have a presentation with slides and images and things. So I think that's something worth thinking about, and it's included in our resources as well. It's a consideration for, you know, always plan for weather and always have a backup activity. But I think if you're implementing a simpler experience, you know, if it's a dinner under the stars and then it's cloudy, I think it's much less disappointing than if you were going to, you know, with the hopes of seeing something through a telescope. So yeah, I think it's just something you have to build in. There's nothing you can do about weather.
Maybe plan, you know, like I have an idea which places are very dark around the world, but I don't have a concrete idea which places are so rainy. So this is like such maps are also good to have in mind so that you prepare your guests, you know, oh, well, our area is so rainy, the probability of this may be this and this, but let's try. So something like this is also important to have for our information.
If you take a look at the resource for tourism businesses, there's a whole activity you go through where you analyze the weather patterns of your local area for a particular, for a whole year. And based on all these conditions, you can come up with the best times to do these activities. But it's true that in many places with rain, that these activities would be seasonal. Yeah.
I see. I'm curious to know if astrotourism is a niche product for tourism, if in Kenya it has already been integrated into the big tourism program plan or country's plan.
There's definitely a focus on niche tourism, but not astrotourism as yet. I think South Africa will set a good example. But for now, the astrotourism that's happening in Kenya is more bottom up. So it's private lodges and stuff that are looking to upskill their guides and install telescopes. But nothing from the top as yet.
My name is Cisco Awala from the Namibian University of Science and Technology, and I know he mentioned me. I'm a researcher and specializing in, the concept is, I know it's astrotourism, dark sky tourism. It's still very much a concept that is being debated within the tourism community, academic community. And I always like to say astrotourism is nothing new, because before all of us were born, there were astrotourists already. Our ancient ancestors who've been observing the night skies for centuries, they were astrotourists. And I just want to share, I won't take up too much of it, I'm just going to share the work that I'm doing. Maybe it can create a bit of insight on what we are doing in Namibia. Thank you, Sam, for a wonderful presentation and all the work that you've been doing with OAD on astrotourism. I can't wait to indulge into all of this, and can definitely guide me in the work that I'm doing. I'm working with indigenous communities in Namibia. I started with the San communities, and I started first doing research to understand their perception of tourism development and whether they are welcome to develop astrotourism in their community. That's where we started, and did extensive research, focus groups, and understanding how they want this kind of astrotourism to be developed in their community. So I've got recommendation, and through doing that study of actually astrotourism, there was a need from the community that they felt that they have been researched for so many years, the same communities. And there's people who come into their community, wrote books for centuries about them. And they ask me, you are one of us, what are you going to do differently? You know, we want to see something tangible out of this astrotourism that you want to do, to introduce to us. So I have been really focusing on trying to find tangible benefits through this project that I'm working on. And their most concern was that their indigenous knowledge that is dying out. These communities, there's less than 3,000 of them. Even their language, the Chuansi language itself, is dying out. So there's few elders who still have this indigenous knowledge of astronomy, and they are, we are working with them, trying to find ways, instead of the old tourism that we always come from, telling the communities how to represent themselves. Can you imagine asking people, telling people how they should represent themselves instead of the people themselves telling us how they want to represent themselves? So we need to move away from the zoo kind of tourism or this cultural commodification that comes with tourism, whereby communities are seen as products of the tourism experience than the actual initiator or driving the tourism experience. So this is now, this model that we're working on, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but it's a work in progress, trying to turn around the paradigm of creating, with astrotourism, creating a way that indigenous people can tell us how they want this experience of astrotourism to be developed. And now the indigenous knowledge, they felt that we need to give value to their indigenous knowledge. And sometimes in tourism, we make mistake that we don't give enough value to our cultural heritage. I don't know if I think I'm talking, you can cut me anytime. So we don't give value. And they felt that if they want people to actually recognize their signs, which are called, it's a signs of indigenous people, and not to represent it in cultural villages where it's like a display. When tourists come and the people are dancing, it's almost like an entertainment. Yeah, they want deeper interaction and tourists to be transformed by the experience. So we're trying now to create this new type of tourism using indigenous knowledge of astronomy to give deeper meaning and transformational experiences, not only for the indigenous people to benefit, but also for people who are coming to learn about the science of indigenous people. So I hope this is just in a nutshell what we're working on. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. It's really important, and I think that's one of the things that we keep in mind with our work. The one is that we want these initiatives to come from the community themselves, but also we recognize that tourism has the potential to really bridge these barriers you have between, like you said, to replace this sort of zoo model with something that's more people interacting with people and breaking down these inequalities and these barriers and genuinely sharing the worldview. So yeah, we definitely have to talk more. I want to invite maybe Joy or Kevin to say something about that. Go ahead,
to say something about that, or just general? Okay. Well, so I think the first point was super valid in terms of like, what do you do if there's a cloudy night? And I think just having an idea of what the main goal is for astrotourism. The goal is nothing to do with astronomy. The goal is economic development. And I think that if we want to stimulate economic development, then when you have a cloudy night, or when there's something that puts a span in the works, how can we still achieve what we want through that? Astrotourism, at the core of what we do within the OAD, it's not about astronomy outreach. It's not about like necessarily showing the people astronomy or teaching people astronomy. It's about stimulating economic development. So if you have a backup plan for a cloudy night, what backup plan can there be that involves some local businesses, or if there's I don't know, meals or a performance or something that can be done that drives economic development, because astronomy gets people to a rural community. What we do with the people in the rural community you know, we need to keep in mind that those are the people we serve, and then that's what we'd like to get out of it is our people benefiting. So I think I just want to make that clear, because a lot of us do outreach and stuff, you know, as part of our job, and this is not about astronomy is cool. It's a nice field. It inspires people. But like, if you want to do something with the astronomy, you know, Dom will have his mental health program. So we'll have our Office for Astronomy outreach. This is about economic development. How can we help communities to stimulate their economies? So,
No.
I see we've like got engaged in a really awesome discussion, but there are two questions online. I see Ketel seems to have a question. Are you online to sort of ask your question? You can just unmute yourself if you. Yeah.
I think my question is from what the previous I don't know if presenter was trying to ask is from talking about. I wanted to first know the whole idea about the astrotourism in Africa. Yes, definitely we've got the fact that we've got good skies, but at the end of the day, are we coming in trying to connect the community to the scientific world, specifically in astronomy, or we are trying to push astro tourism due to the fact that we need to have economical development? Because at the end of the day, when we do the science, it's supposed to bring a certain income. So are we looking at it from the business point of view, or we are coming with the idea of introducing astrotourism in Africa just to engage the community and people who are interested in the field of science, doing it for free? That's my first question. I think we'll follow up later for more.
I think I haven't already touched on this, but maybe I'll just reiterate that our main goal is to stimulate economic development. So if the science part comes in, it's good, but I think we don't want to let the science take precedence over the economic development, because there are, you know, our other flagship projects exploring that, and other IAU offices doing that through outreach. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but it's primarily economic development, sustainable business, I guess.
Okay, I also see Caroline and Schmat.
Yeah,
So
great.
let's start with Caroline first.
Yeah, greetings, everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there. I'm here in the Karoo. I just wanted to say that those resources are excellent, absolutely excellent. I've been using them in workshops to the tourism businesses for them to create night sky activities. They are very practical. They are really, really great. Well done. I think the thing is with astrotourism, if we want to make it a tourism kind of product, we've really got to get this information out to tourism products as such. So yeah, but well done. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. And yeah, if you have any advice or suggestions for how to get this spread wider, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, there is only one way of actually doing it, and that is it being organized and actually going around the country and doing workshops, you know, with the tourism products and the different tourism agencies and different tourism what do you call it, associations. But I'm working on it. I am. Okay.
Appreciate that.
Hey, thank you so much, Caroline. Any questions or comments from Uchmat? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, first of all, thank you so much for your insightful presentation, Samyukta. And yeah, I just want to highlight uh, something that me from Indonesia, we face a relatively similar situation with the African countries, while we still have limited infrastructure, but our human resource potential is extraordinary, such as especially we have a lot of active amateur astronomy communities. But I just want to make sure and ask to you, how do you think countries like ours can optimize this human resource potential so that astrotourism has a broader and more sustainable impact, both socially and economically? And the second, uh, I just realized that our government, especially the Ministry of Tourism in our country, has acknowledged the potential of astrotourism, but the effort towards real improvement, such as addressing the light pollution, have never been taken seriously. So yeah, how should we respond to such a situation? Thank you.
Um, I'm trying to remember your first question now. Well, I'll just answer the second while I come back to the first. I think for me, like dark skies and astrotourism go hand in hand. So the cycle starts somewhere, you start with dark sky protection, and then people realize that, oh, we can see a lot more stars, maybe we can build some tourism products around this. But it can also work the other way around, where if you start building tourism products already and you start creating this culture of relying on the night sky as a resource, then you have more incentive to protect it. So I imagine if you're not having much success with convincing the government about light pollution policy, I think, astrotourism, the economic stuff and the numbers at the end of the day go a longer way sometimes when you're trying to convince people. So I imagine that's a good route to take. Oh, sorry, could you repeat your first question, because I've forgotten.
Sorry?
Could you repeat the first question that you had?
The second one?
The
You mean?
first one.
The first? Okay. The first is about our potential as a amateur astronomy community for broader and more sustainable impact of astrotourism. Because you mentioned before that you have such example for coordinating some event like stargazing or so on. So I just want to know how can we optimize this human resource potential.
I think what we need to do is raise awareness with local tourism businesses. So maybe invite them to your astronomical society meetings and then talk to them about astrotourism. I think just engaging as many people as you can and talking to as many people as you can. Feel free to use our resources. They're available online for free. And we are also looking at ways to have people do workshops and things around the world. So yeah, I think it all starts with raising awareness about astrotourism as an opportunity. I think that's a good place to start.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Samyukta.
Thank you.
All right, so I think we've kept Sam standing in front for long enough.
One chat.
So,
There's one question and one
oh,
chat.
more questions. Okay, so. Is it the one? Another question from Ketan?
Okay, same person.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, can we just give a round of applause again to can I just double check whether our other two speakers aren't around again? Professor Bisham. Is Professor Bisham available to give this talk? Or Ruth Kichumba? Okay, doesn't seem like they're around. So I think we can just continue the conversation or discussions into the insights that we've had before. Yeah.
I'm happy to defer to anyone who hasn't had a chance. So I just wanted to bring up something specific, especially following some of the last comments. So we speak about economic development in this context with the OED, with Sam's talk and stuff. But like astrotourism, in terms of what we can achieve with astrotourism, we must also think bigger. In that there is something very fundamental that a fundamental challenge that we have in the world, and that is one of inequality. And it's not an easy problem to overcome. It's not something that we can easily tackle. What astrotourism does is that it actually represents a connection between two very unequal communities. One, the rural villages that have, economic troubles, and the other is those that can afford to travel to rural areas. And something when you're running astrotourism, when anyone's running astrotourism programs, is to also look at the human side of astrotourism. You're putting together here two very different communities, sometimes very wealthy people traveling to very rural areas. What can be done to make a cultural connection or a social connection, a human connection between these two communities? So the economic development is one thing. We want the money to flow, between these two unequal communities. But we also want both these communities to benefit in terms of growth, So when Sam talks about the cultural aspects and stuff, we shouldn't look at it as a even though there is a lot of inequality, we shouldn't look at it as there's one poor people that need to be helped by the rich people kind of thing. It should also be like, what are the rich people sort of going to learn, going to grow? How are they going to sort of connect with the community on a human level? Because when we do that, then we start contributing to sort of, helping people on either sides understand inequality and understand the importance of us seeing ourselves as human beings, as people that can help each other. And I say help each other because we have the privilege where we've got half our family in Europe and half our family in South Africa. Half our family grew up in like very poor rural areas, and half the family, my wife's side of the family, grew up in very wealthy, rich areas. And their cousins and stuff like that. There was one interesting conversation I had where they said, we need to get our children to know what hardship is like. Because they're so used to having like everything working and stuff like that, that in Europe, people are growing up without any resilience. Whereas in Africa, every day is a survival struggle, and that makes the population resilient. And in the coming years, our children, our children's children, it's going to be Africans that actually survive. When climate change sort of devastates us, or wars, or things happen. Now, how do we also help those people that are actually so well off that the growth is not happening? So I'm throwing this out there because it's sort of more of a philosophical approach to what can be done with this bringing together of two very diverse communities.
Any?
I want to ask a question. I want to ask a question, but I'm also tired. I'm not going to touch on the philosophical aspect of the approach to astrotourism. But I want to go back to what Cisco was saying, and also the question is directed at you, Sam. Because you said something about indigenous knowledge and indigenous foods and all of that. What I'm curious to know is, how do we guard against commodification of culture while we are also pushing astrotourism?
A difficult question there. It's okay. I think I need a moment.
It doesn't have to be answered by you only, because I think the whole room here probably has some views around this, because you see it often, like we have places like, what is it? Wait, stop. So it doesn't have to be answered by you only, it has to be answered by everyone, or everyone will probably have an opinion or a thought. And the reason I'm asking this is because we have places, even here in South Africa, like the Ndebele Cultural Village, and I think at St. Parks, they used to have this guided hike up Table Mountain. And what they used to do, like the people who used to guide were Black, and they used to tell stories about, their culture. And even though I was working there, I would feel a bit uncomfortable because I relate to the culture, I relate to the people, but then you feel like people are being used in order to make the experience fun and more pleasing to Europeans or the people who are visiting. And there is no understanding of the self that is involved in the demonstration and I don't know, what a caricature in a way of culture. Because now we have to bring ourselves to that, these are the games that we used to play and blah, blah, blah. But what made more sense was the look at the plants and talking about what they mean to the culture. But then the evening activities where people have to play, act the culture. And that's the part that I'm concerned about. And that's the gist of my question.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, because this happens a lot with tourism in Kenya, where it's the commodification of the culture, like it's exaggerated and performed almost. I think what Cisco said earlier is really important about first making sure that it's what the community wants, to talk to them about how they want to be portrayed, how they want to come across. Because it's very easy to go and look at other tourism models and visit a place and be like, oh, this works. Someone performing a caricature works, so we're going to do that with our culture. But I also think the onus is sometimes on the traveler to go in with an attitude of respect and equality. I think if you're going to visit someplace, it shouldn't be, this fetishized, exotic other place, but I think you have to also go in as a human being and genuinely be curious about the other human being. I don't know if anyone, Joy has something to say.
No, I actually just wanted to add on to what Sam said. So if it is community led, then they have all of the control over what they share with the visitors and stuff like that. So if the community is the one that is leading the astrotourism, that's how you don't over.
Before Cisco says something, but there is a different.
Mike.
I hear what you're saying, Joy, but at the same time, I think then we go back to what Kevin was saying. There is an uneven ground there. You come to my village, there's nothing in my village except my culture. You're visiting it. So how do I find the balance? Because I want the money. Because let's not forget that this is also, like the use of culture in order to make a living. I have no power. You are bringing people to me and you say, oh, they expect to see the culture. I have no way to control what it is that will appeal. So now I have to perform. This is the part that I'm talking about. That when we're talking about uneven relationship or relations, one is always, even if you say it's led by the community, one is always going to be the carpet for the other and for the benefit of the other.
I'm enjoying this discussion. Thank you so much. Yes, I just want to add on that part regarding the commodification of culture and how tourism has been done. And I'll just give you an example from my experience, which I don't want to say African context, but maybe Namibian context. What has been happening over the years is that we in Namibia, we have not been giving value to our culture, and we have displayed our cultural heritage and packaged them in tourism experiences that gave an artificial representation of the culture. I mean, cultural heritage has rich knowledge systems, African knowledge systems, which I like to call the science of indigenous people. And when you take that science out of context, you remove that heritage, sacred heritage site that was used for certain rituals for that community. And then you remove the community from practicing that site and you open it up as a tourist attraction. You've taken that cultural practice out of context. And that is what maybe astrotourism should look into. To do tourism differently, and we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about issues of climate change, issues that are really affecting us. I know economic is important, but we should look deeper than economic. We should look at the qualitative benefit first of these indigenous people. Because in Namibia, we have models of conservancies. We've been doing it for many years. It's in tourism. And we focused at the beginning on economic benefits, trying to bring economic benefits through tourism to these communities. What happens? They receive this income through joint venture with private sectors. Yeah, we give them wildlife into conservancies with and then what happens to this income? It goes into alcohol. Shebeens are built in rural areas. So this model has not worked. So I think it's time now that we could give an opportunity in Namibia specifically, that we can do tourism differently, change the paradigm shift, and try and use astrotourism as an opportunity to give opportunity for indigenous peoples themselves to tell us how they want their knowledge to be preserved, how they want it to be represented, and how they want it to be transmitted. Not us as academics or us as development officers or policy makers to decide for them. It's their science. Let them decide how they want it to be represented. And some science of the indigenous people is not for everybody's consumption. It's not for every tourism consumption. So we should respect that. Let's listen to them, because maybe they have the answers we've been looking for. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we'll first, just to make it a bit inclusive, we'll take one comment from Caroline online. I think she wrote something, but I probably it would be better if she just sort of joined the discussion.
Oh, thank you. Here in Victoria West, which, as you know, is close to the SKA, we have mustered up these little kids to join a chess group. So we invested in a whole lot of chess sets. We've now gone from 20 chess sets to 40 chess sets, which then moved on to a day of maths. So on a Tuesday, they play maths, they go to maths. Wednesday, they play chess. Thursdays, they do science. And Mondays, we've now got reading, so English and Afrikaans. So it started off with like 10 kids. I think there's now 40 kids that come in the afternoons after school. And what's also been quite amazing is that their school marks have gone up hugely. And then on a Friday, they all pop past my house because I live near the river, which is dark. And then we take out my telescope and we look at the stars. And just through that, the kids now, the maths groups are growing, and the science groups and the chess groups and the whatever. So we're taking them off the street. Yeah, it's very satisfying, and it's working.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for your contribution.
Thank you. I just thought of an idea maybe of another way we can do the astrotourism that can benefit the cultures. I just want to point out that the reason why we are disappointed in the so-called culture shows is because we know the depth of the cultures that we are witnessing. We know what the tourists do not know, but we also have the advantage of being on both sides of the coin. We can be the tourists or we can be part of the people. So that's why we are disappointed, because we have more information than what the tourists have. So I suggest that perhaps in our efforts for astrotourism, we include education, not just entertainment. The information has to be there. Is it possible that the tourists are first sat down, let's say in classes or whatever, and informed of the cultures and the meaning behind the cultures before they are treated to a show? The other thing is the knowledge systems, etc. Is it possible for us to document these cultures and we make this knowledge mainstream such that it's not looked at as, it's just for comic benefit and whatnot, but if the knowledge is out there about the importance of these traditions or rituals or whatever to the people, when the tourists are treated to that show, they will not take it lightly. Why? Because they've been informed way before this happens. So how about bringing this knowledge and this information to the forefront in our different countries? That includes documenting the cultural knowledge and I don't know how to disseminate it, whatever, but the reason why we are so disappointed in what we see is because we are informed, but they are not. They take it as just entertainment or comical benefit performances. So they have to be informed the way we are. It's the only way they will appreciate the cultures that we appreciate them. Just a suggestion.
All right.
Maybe I shouldn't have left.
All right, thank you so much for all your contributions. I think we've had a quite rich session. Makes us have a deeper thought into the whole concept of astrotourism. As also mentioned in the chats, we need to find which to value more, benefits or profit. And in much moods opinion, benefits should be above profits. I think with this, we'll close the session. If there are any
Well, I just want to say one quick thing, just as a summary of these discussions. Maybe if I can attempt to summarize it in a line, it should be the difference between selling our culture and sharing our culture. And if we embrace it as sharing our culture rather than selling our culture, then I think everything else could follow from there.
All right, thank you so much. I think we then can close the session here. I encourage you to continue these discussions amongst yourself even after the session and after the conference. Thank you. Thank you to all the speakers. To the speaker. Sorry.
Yeah, we're done.
Thank you all for a very lively discussion. And yes, I hope you've enjoyed all the sessions. Yes.